Hi, welcome. I'm Katarina Flaxman, the League's Program Manager, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to this current work lecture, MMBB Arquitetos and Brasil Arquitetura, Regenerating Downtown São Paulo. First, I would like to thank our sponsors. This program is supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council and the New York State Council on the Arts, with the support of Governor Andrew Cuomo and the New York State Legislature. This event is organized by the Architectural League of New York and co-presented with the Irvin S. Chenin School of Architecture of the Cooper Union. Tonight we will hear from Marta Moreira from MMBB Arquitetos and Francisco Fanucci from Brasil Arquitetura. Their presentations will be followed by a moderated discussion and Q&A with Saul Camacho, who will also introduce the speakers and the projects they will discuss. Saul Camacho is an architect and curator, founder of São Paulo and Mexico City-based Studio Radar, and cultural director of Instituto Bard Casa de Vidro. Before I pass this over to Saul, just a few reminders for everyone. Please type your questions in the Q&A section on the bottom of your screen and not in the chat. We will have time to address questions at the end of the presentations. And this program was approved to offer 1.5 AIA continuing education credits. You'll find complete information about how to report credits in the chat. Thank you all for joining us. And Saul, you can take it from here.
Thank you, Kata. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I thank you to the Architectural League of New York for the invitation. I feel honored to be introducing tonight this event with two architects which I admire professionally and personally. I have crossed paths both with Marta Moreira and Francisco Fanucci in the school corridors and other professional endeavors. Both work based in São Paulo, where I've lived for the past 10 years, and the work that you're going to see tonight illustrates very well one of the many realities of this megalopolis. I'm going to share my screen with some images. São Paulo is the largest and arguably the most important city in the Latin American Southern Hemisphere in terms of culture and commerce. It's downtown full of layers of significance of architectural and social history with a colonial core, 19th century buildings, modern ideals, and contemporary character has today contrasting components: liveliness, decadence, density and abandonment, popular culture, and world-class museums and venues. The most characteristic and singular nature is its porosity. By this, I mean the relationship between what is open and what is closed, what is public and what is private space. Since the 50s, its downtown buildings have stitched a unique ground floor that allows for circulation in a very special way. You can see that buildings in this map, you can circulate through the urban fabric. The buildings from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s understood the urban fabric in a way that has built a characteristic downtown. In recent years, to this ground floor, two magnificent buildings have been added to São Paulo's downtown. SESC 24 de Maio and Praça das Artes. Praça das Artes by Francisco Fanucci by Brasil Arquitetura. Today, Francisco Fanucci is presenting, and SESC 24 de Maio by Paulo Mendes da Rocha and MMBB, presenting today Marta Moreira. I am honored to present them. Marta Moreira, who is going to present first. Graduated in 1987 from the well-known Fanucci, the Architecture and Urbanism School of the University of São Paulo. She's a funding partner of MMBB, which with Milton Braga founded since 1990, and which partner Maria João joined in 2018. They have collaborated with architect Paulo Mendes da Rocha since 1995. Besides her practice, Marta leads an academic career as professor of the design department of Escola-da-Cidade since 2001, and she's a member of the board since 2008. To be honest, Marta is a powerhouse. More than mentioning all the awards and recognitions that she has earned, which you can read in diverse publications, I have to say that Marta is a generous professional, as someone that I have learned from since I arrived to Brazil. For her approach to pressing matters, like Córrego Santo Anico and Jardim Medici projects, for her collaborative skills, working with other architects, like in the Aeronautic Technologic Institute project, where I met her, and her absolute professionalism in executing complex projects like the SESC 24 de Maio, which you're going to see today with Paulo Mendes da Rocha. These two buildings make sense together because they stitch the ground floor, and because both are built by professionals that have been representing a generation in São Paulo that is really advancing the field of architecture. In this sense, Francisco Fanucci, who built with Brasil Arquitetura a Praça das Artes, is an experienced architect that has developed a brilliant career expanding the field of architecture with some of the most exemplary projects of this generation. Like Marta, Francisco graduated from FAUSP just 10 years earlier in 1977. He is a founding partner of Brasil Arquitetura and building almost uncountable projects, mostly dealing with cultural and institutional programs, restoring and transforming heritage buildings, and also controlling a multi-scalar approach. In this sense, he is a co-founder of Marcenaria Baraúna, which is a furniture design company that he co-founded and co-owned. Brasil Arquitetura has earned an international awards. His work has been presented in the Tokyo Art Museum, in the Centro Universitario Maria Antônia in São Paulo, in the Museo Andersen in Rome, in Turin, in Paris Malaquais, in the Bienal Panamericana de Quito. I mean, also Francisco is a staple architect from the São Paulo scene. Francisco also leads an academic career coordinating the vertical studio at Escola-da-Cidade since it started, where I met Chico and have had the honor to be working with him in the school. Having said that, please, Marta, you can start your presentation. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and I will be moderating if you want to have any Q&A. I'll be attending those. Thanks.
Thank you, Sol. Thank you very much. Good evening to all. First of all, I would like to thank Architectural League, Annie and Catarina for the invitation. It's an honor and a big pleasure to be here with you tonight. I'm going to share my screen to present the project SESC 24 de Maio. As Sol told you, is a project by Paulo Mendes da Rocha with the collaboration of MMBB, the office that I'm partner. Sorry that I'm going to read the presentation, because if not, it's the only way that I can make myself understood, because the language. SESC 24 de Maio, as Sol told us now, is located in the historic center of São Paulo that is immensely dense, diverse, and hosts extremely varied cultural manifestations. 100 meters from the Praça da República, that's one, and the São Paulo Municipal Theater, and here is SESC, as the city developed, a number of other important centralities were formed, but the historic center continues to be a reference for the metropolis as a whole. This sketch by Paulo Mendes da Rocha is a nice image of an idea of the city. It was made long before any prospect of designing the SESC 24 de Maio. In the middle of Praça da República, two concrete buttresses on the ends of 100 by 100 meters suspended volume, a public swimming pool that at the same time forms a marquee, which provides shade for varied events as a party, a market, a meeting, an urban beach. This is an image of an elevated road that disastrously cuts through the city center. On weekends, it is closed to traffic and becomes a place for several other events. People appropriate the space, as is the case here with these water games. Architecture is made by people through the creative enjoyment of possibilities as they present themselves. To imagine a SESC where the swimming pool is a fundamental part of the program in the center of São Paulo meant for us to imagine the biggest possible pool in the sun, between the dense mass of a constructed building. It is amusing to think that the real estate market builds small pools on rooftop apartments that are marketed as a high luxury few can afford. And this is a popular public swimming pool with a capacity for 400 people simultaneously. It is worth explaining here what type of organization the SESC is in São Paulo. This image is of the wonderful SESC Pompeia, designed by Lina Bobardi, who perhaps many of you know. SESC is an institution that oversees 38 activity centers that bring together various fields of expertise, articulated through a variety of cultural, educational, sports, leisure, and health programs. SESC actually is a private organization, but that works with public money because a percent of all the taxes that the commerce and services pay in São Paulo goes for SESC. We believe that the process of transformation and development of cities such as São Paulo is made by slowly adapting to the changes of customs and the way of life of the societies that build them. SESC 24 de Maio, in the same way as SESC Pompeia, occupies an existing building. In this case, the building used to be the flagship of the Nestlé department store, and both SESC projects represent exemplary challenges of architectural intervention that redefine the whole of beauty heritage in the city. The shop was on the ground and the first floor, and was intensely frequented, but the other 11 floors were administrative support and storage. The structure has an ambitious span of around 4 meters between columns and low ceiling, making it enormously difficult to adapt to the new program's demands. Demolition was seriously considered as the building had no relevant importance from a historical or architectural point of view, and its adaptation presented so many difficulties. But it was there as built heritage and the transformation, the occupation of that heritage is fundamentally important in the transformation of cities, as I mentioned. The fact that the building is organized around a central void in the lot allowed us to imagine the possibility of the adaptation we desired. On this plan, the demolished areas are shaded in sepia. The preserved building that uniformly developed over 13 floors is in white. The structures represented in gray are previous existing, new structures are in black. In the central void, there are 4 columns and slabs distributed on some of the floors for a new structure which holds the volume of the swimming pool, built completely independent of the existing structure, as it had to be. A section where you can clearly see the new structure as a building inside the old one. The central void was also strategic for the organization of the construction, where a crane was installed once the entire lot was taken over by construction. That is the last floor of the existing building. The swimming pool above it. In addition to the concrete pool, a laxed steel structure along the 3 limits of the new upper volume complemented the solarium, and what corresponds to the depth of the tank accommodates the pool's changing rooms. The set of activities is organized vertically, with each floor dedicated to a specific program, but which are related in sets of 2 or 3 floors. In some cases, the central void is kept, creating an association between 2 floors, as for example with exhibitions and art studios, or with sports. In addition to the formal vertical circulation system of elevators and fire escape staircase, there is a ramp system running the entire length of the building as an extension of the sidewalk. It is like a continuation of a walk in the city where one finds different spaces, a cafe, a library, a square, a beach. It is one way of experiencing the building in a fluid, festive manner without constraints. The ramp itself is a place of meeting and games. As Saul told us, the Centro Novo, as this region of the historic center of São Paulo is known, became what is today between the 30s and 60s, with the construction of a notable set of modern mixed-use buildings, with ground floors occupied by extensive shopping arcades that cut through blocks internally. The first ground floor was built in a similar fashion, as a freely accessed square interconnecting 2 streets and characterizing the entrance foyer. The corner was the access to Mesbla. Although the building is no longer accessed from here, a large window onto the street was created. This is one of the 2 accesses on Rua 24 de Maio. This is the ground floor plan. The double height internal square I described earlier, with the reception volume forming the corner. I would like to mention here that when we made our first visit to the original building with SESC director Danilo Miranda, Paulo Mendes noticed a small neighboring building on a 7-20-meter lot. Here, if you can see my my narrow.
Yes.
Especially, thank you, especially small for this part of the city, which was for sale. He suggested that the SESC should buy the building and made a beautiful comparison, saying the Mesbla building would be the ship and that the small annex should function as a task boat that approached the ship for maintenance and refueling. The SESC purchased the building, and this annex is where all equipment, or most of the equipment, toilets, changing rooms, and storage is installed. A service annex, the task boat. An image of this entrance square. The idea of the annex is always beautiful in architecture, the creation of your own neighbor. The annex can always be seen from the ramp and vice versa. The original building already had a basement used as a car park. We installed the theater here, which is still connected to the city by a 6-meter wide staircase. It is the second theater, without a shaded downstage or stage box, which coexists with the set of existing and new columns. It has a nice feature, which is that the access level develops around the entire void of the stage and audience. The cafe and the foyer. The original basement level was lowered by 3 meters in the central portion to form the void of the stage and develop the stalls, respecting the limits of the existing building's foundation. Dressing rooms are on the same level in the annex building. At live concerts, as this one that was Martinalha's concert, a beautiful Brazilian singer, people go to the boxes to dance. On the first floor, offices overlook the street and the internal central void. That is where people that are responsible for the administration of the complex are installed. The SESC restaurant is well known and popular, and at these times a queue stretches along the ramp. I was told the other day that there was a street vendor selling sweets to the people waiting in line. I found it very funny, a completely urban situation. Buildings in this part of the city are built in alignment with the lots, creating a pleasing proximity between them. On the other side of the street, we can see the Reg Gallery. Conviviality is part of the SESC program. This floor is open, without frames, free of any specific program, and functions as a strategically elevated square. The low ceiling height requires a series of strategies to accommodate the various installations. The circular construction on this floor houses the exhaust machinery for the kitchen on the floor below, for instance. The library level, as I said, the library, restaurant, and conviviality make a block of the program. The frequent columns were often used as support for furniture, as a strategy of transforming an interference into something supporting and effective use. The exhibition hall with a double height space in the center. The art studios immediately above. The dental clinic. It is curious because SESC offers this health service among all the other cultural and sports programs. From the start, all installations were imagined to be visible, but as work progressed, we gradually stripped them down further. The electrical panels that you see in this picture were initially going to be placed in a cupboard, but we left them like that. The sports floor also has a double height central area. The changing rooms overlook the void that directly connects the two floors, as we can see here. This section shows one of the side alignments of the building, which in places abuts the neighbor, creating a situation of balconies distributed through different floors with double or even triple heights. They are like elevated gardens. This one is in the conviviality floor, sports, the swimming pool solarium. It is actually a lateral void that runs along the entire building. The dance floor, the four central columns support a set of bars and mirrors. This is the last level of the original building, as I showed in the beginning, the other photo of the construction. Clearly noticeable because all we see now is the new structure. It is the pool garden. It's a program that complements the pool program on the top. Again, it's like a square with a cafe, which complements the pool program. As the pool is one of the few places with controlled access for safety reasons, the reflecting pool on this level is a free water play area for everybody. Initially, we hadn't imagined this, but from the first day, people went into the reflecting pool and freely appropriated the space. Today, it is one of the most successful programs. The pool change rooms are accommodated around the pool structure. The last stretch of ramp leads to the pool. The pool is 25 by 25 meters, the largest possible in this situation. I took this picture during the construction at a moment of rest, and I like it very much. People look for a comfortable situation in the most unexpected ways. We were also invited to design the furniture for the building. SESC 24 de Maio receives on average 10,000 visitors per day, which is a lot of people. The maintenance and durability of the furniture is an important issue. This is why we choose the steel as the basic material for execution of the furniture. We also like the idea of using construction labor, the solid bar, the metal sheet, the weld. The piece you see in this picture is one of those tools that are made on site to solve needs that arise. It is beautiful to observe the ingenuity and grace of the strictly necessary. The tripod, 3 points that define a plane, is the best way to relate to the often irregular floor of the construction. The piece attached on top is a support for all types of pipes or wiring during their installation. Of quite varied height, this piece served as motivation for thinking about the design of all the furniture. The piece found in the construction became table legs, with a different part for attaching the surface. The production of prototypes was essential. Steel has an interesting elasticity, but needs to be well dosed by the geometry of the design. The first table we produced wobbled in such a way it was nicknamed the tremor, so we had to correct the dimensions and the geometry of it. The triangular table allows for a number of interesting articulations among them. The chair, that's another piece of the series, with and without arms. The chairs are stackable. The sofa is a curious piece to design for a collective use contest. Because it is such a domestic piece. We imagine a base structure that accommodates 4 seats. It is a system, actually. Once again, the elasticity of steel associated to a certain geometry makes the backrest accommodate different types of people. The gap between the 2 plates accommodates the spinal column. There is a nice association when the direction of the pieces is reversed. The furniture no longer has a front and a back. People sit face to face. In Brazil, we call this piece a conversadeira or namoradeira, that we can maybe translate to talking chairs or flirting chairs. If you take one of the seats, one table can be installed as an accessory to the system. The armchair is the same seat on another stand. And changing the stand using a different geometry, the armchair becomes a low chair with greater inclination. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marta. It's a beautiful presentation, which touches on so many levels and so many scales. Thanks for presenting it all. We can talk about it together with Francisco after he finishes. So Chico, Francisco, please, if you can open your camera. So thank you. Francisco, as I already presented, will be presenting Praça das Artes. Any doubts, I'm around here. Thank you, Chico.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. I would like to thank the invitation to the Architectural League of New York to present our project for a complex of building Praça das Artes, a performing arts center in São Paulo. And first of all, I apologize for my English, my poor English, but I'll try. Let's try. Well, we live in a moment of profound crisis in the quality of urban life in the cities. In Brazil, especially in our great cities, which has come about from the failure of a city model ruled by cars and social inequality, it is imperative and desirable to reevaluate the agenda for architecture and urbanism. That is, to reconsider the reason why, how, and for whom we build cities. The laws, rules, and the laws, rules, and regulations created to forge and control cities no longer guarantee the quality of urban space, no longer provides the urban comfort that supports the social interactions that are necessary to experience life as at its fullest. Generic or macro-scale urban plans do not guarantee the quality of urban space either. They may work in some cases, but fail when transposed to another scale, such as when it comes to architectural materialization of a human scale that should support the vital needs of a city's inhabitants. In 1981, we participated with Lina Bobardi in the competition for the redevelopment design of Anhangabaú Valley, that is in the heart of the city. Our design aimed to take vehicles off the ground and put them on an elevated, narrow metal structure that would cut through the valley like a ribbon. Its main purpose was to liberate spaces for the pedestrians to create a park, a garden, or a large square for all who live or pass through São Paulo, essentially to conquer the territory and make it public. Today, 30 years later, we have managed to design and build Praça das Artes in the same Anhangabaú Valley, a cultural complex in the city dedicated to dance and music, which, beyond its specific programmatic function, is key to the urban regeneration of that part of the city and to creation of an urban fabric for pedestrian and social interaction. In our approach to both the Anhangabaú Valley project and Praça das Artes, the objectives of the design are explicit. We sought to understand what was obsolete, unused, and malfunctioning, what had expired in our old urban design. And a design that formed the seat of the 19th century and represent nowadays an anachronism. Homes or small buildings with yards and vegetable gardens that sat at the back of long Portuguese plots of land. Are no longer justified. This long plots of the land and for small houses and that resist until today in the center of São Paulo. It's incredible. So longer justified. So they end up dying, giving way to emptiness. Emptiness in both a physical and figurative sense. No buildings and no use. I refer to the backyards, the core of the blocks, shafts for ventilations, permeable areas required by law, or simply numbers. Specifically, I refer to many square meters that help to generate real estate profits in the pervert equations of planning policies, such as rates of land use or occupancy despite and far removed from the social role of the property. Nevertheless, the amazing fact is that they are real areas, available space that have lost their functional use, places which no longer hold life. Here a diagram that shows approximately what is the ground floor of this group of buildings, completely free and public. They're connecting three streets inside the complex of buildings. From these leftovers, or better yet, with these resulting scraps, we build Praça das Artes, since there are many gaps in the downtown area. There are endless possibilities vis-a-vis the transformation and revitalization of those spaces, the search for more urban comfort through design. We had the great opportunity to reinvent our social habitat through the expansion of public areas on a human scale to make them communicate with our vessels through our sense space for encounters and interaction. At Praça das Artes, the design originates from the boulders and takes shape from them, presenting itself to the city and revealing its foundation. The failure of our urban model of plots, which no longer serves a purpose, no longer functions in the life of metropolis. For this very reason, as a kind of a revelation, we did not occupy the ground floor, not even with columns. This also helps to consider an architecture that originates from difficulties and restrictions, which does not require a tabula rasa as a base. It was a very complicated construction process because we had to support all the neighboring neighboring buildings, huge buildings. We have used a reinforced concrete structure. Everything in the building structure, everything. In order to achieve the high level of acoustic performance necessary, there are rooms inside rooms to prevent transmissions and vibrations from one place to the other. The restoration of former conservatory was rather complex and involved representatives from heritage preservation. The historic preservationists asked us to paint in 2 or 3 shades of brown to retrieve in time in the past. This was a big discussion that we have with the preservationists because they look to the past and some past, because this building was initially in the beginning of his life was a hotel. So the owner of the hotel began to send the pianos for the coffee barons that we call here in São Paulo, and of simply the place where you can buy a piano. This place became part of the hotel, was changed. This place became a small concert room to music, camera music, and so with the time it changes in the conservatory, musical conservatory and dramatic conservatory of São Paulo, a very important institution until this may be the beginning of the municipal theaters of São Paulo. So let me see where I was. The restoration of former conservatory was rather complex and involved a representative from heritage preservations. The historic preservationists asked us to paint in 2 or 3 shades of brown to retrieve in time in the past. But we insisted that it should be white because the color is not as important as the architecture. And we believe that the white inside and outside the building represent the future of that historic building, not its past. Has said Sverstein, the Norwegian architect. Only by manifestation of the present, you can make the past speak. If you try to run after it, you will never reach it. Well, the red block in the center of the complex is almost like the head of the complex because it houses the elevators, the staircase, the restrooms, etc. And it is the place where we link the old and the new, and to the building of the resident companies. Yeah. Recently was finished and entrance towards Anhangabaú, the real Plaza Square. And it, in this space has a big staircase here that completing the plaza. It's quite strange because it is a building or a complex that is a bit ugly and dirty, but it is trying attention to the possibilities of this space. The school has nearly 3,000 students. The school, this is the building of the professional. The school is in another block. It's functioning very well, has a performing art school, much like Juilliard School in New York City. Part of the space is now used for shows and performances for everything, really. Official or one can sit down, play some instrument or make something, and other people join. And this is a ballet dancing the vertical surface of the building. Things like this happens every day. This is a small space for individual training of instrument, and this is a street. It's a Conselheiro Crispiniana, a very important street here in São Paulo, and the insulation is perfect. You can hear nothing in the city, and this person inside. Oh my God, sorry. And it is a school of dance. So that before functioning under the viaduct, it's a terrible space, and they're very happy with this space. And, well, on the first floor, there will be a large bar and restaurant. For this space, we invited an artist from Minas Gerais, Marta Moreira, who worked with Lina during all her life, to concept covers for the acoustic panels were made by crafts women of the Minas Gerais artisans, and it's a way to introducing a popular art into the building. And this restaurant is in the core of the indoor complex of building, because on one side you have the professionals, from the other side came the students, from the other access all the people who work and administration people, and together everybody use this space. Sorry, I'm manipulating so many things here in the from São Paulo Avenue. There is what appears to be a big mouth, so to speak, which serves to create the main entrance in combination with the former conservatory next to it. Inside the conservatory building, there is a new chandelier, which was designed with many lights. It's a kind of medusa. It was a fight for us to paint the historic room in white. This is the room of camera music. Considering the central areas of the city as heritage, historic or not, this is the mouth. This is the mouth from Avenida São João, what we call mouth, and here is the situation, and here is the pre-existence. Well, considering the centralized of the city has heritage, historic or not, but always a heritage, it is worth noting that they unfortunately have never been on the agenda or in the map when it comes to urban decision making. Let me reiterate, urban plans never originate from available resource. They never consider existing properties to support their development and justification. That is a shame. We need to raise the old city to build the new one, and are not able to keep them in parallel or juxtaposition as in Lisbon, Paris, or Istanbul. This is due to predominant concepts and practices, both in the part of this is due to predominant concepts and practices, both in the part of preservationists who are keen to place heritage and display case like a fragile and useless porcelain, as well as on the part of developers or demolishers who, for the sake of technical. The urban planning we desire and still hope to achieve for our cities is made of grass, pavement, steel, cement, trees, matter, and materials which give form, materializing the design. It is made up of a clear desire to transform and bring comfort to people. It is made up of architecture. The urbanism that we seek must start from the physical and human geography, arising from the city proper. This is the last part that was finished in the complex. Still is incomplete. We hope that the new we wait for the new governor, the new mayor of the city to go to the project. Wow, let's go finish this. It's very important. It's a kind of action of architecture, not in the like design, but like a fight for the things happens. In Brazil, it's very difficult to show this. With you, the public institutions are difficult, and there's some images of the place of the transparency and the connection with the different parts of the city inside the block, the quarter, and Anhangabaú in here, Anhangabaú, and we are looking under the school building. This is a staircase of the concert hall, the small concert hall. Originally, there was a big staircase inside the building, but they demolished them. And we think we're going to improve this staircase in the outside part of the building, and it's the main staircase important of the concert. You go to outside the building and return in the same vertical line. At night, and we are looking from the Conselheiro Street to the Anhangabaú. The big staircase, the Ballet da Cidade. It's professionals of the municipal theater in a side say this is a swimming pool for treatments of for the dancers and musicians. Oh, sorry. Sorry. This is an opera that they do in the unfinished building, in a place of a phase of the orchestra, the municipal orchestra of the Teatro Municipal de São Paulo, and it's a place to say operas because in the municipal theater you don't have spaces adequate keep it to this kind of function, and they experiment, they use it even during the construction, but it was very beautiful to experience this opera in that moment. Here, what we call a group of music that we call, what's the name? I don't remember, but the people invade this is the space, the mouth of the São João, what we call mouth, and they invaded the place, and it was a very big party. The space was there, and they used simple like this. And we like so much of this kind of situations that happens with so much frequency in the São Paulo. Well, is this. Finally, this walls, this holes in the wall that you use looking to outside to inside and from inside to outside with small fragments of the urban paysage extent to this. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chico. Thank you so much for showing this absolutely amazing building, which I know very well, but I had never seen you presenting it and showing beautiful images. Maybe Marta, Cata, and can join us for a small conversation. I know everyone has been here for an hour or so, and so we just want to, I think, comment on some of the things that both Marta and Francisco presented, which to me, I already know downtown, I already know São Paulo, but looking at these images, sometimes it's just like amazing, these unexpected, absolutely unexpected moments. Although this urban fabric is full of shops and the daily life, and it's not like you're reviving a downtown because it's already very much alive, but you're bringing moments that are completely unexpected. I mean, the theater piece hanging from the wall, and children, you know, splashing in the water. You're bringing contemporary features and possibilities to downtown. So when Kata and the Architectural League thought of inviting you, it was in the context of this restoring, reviving, reusing, recycling a conversation that they've been having in the past semester of 2021. And in this sense, I always say that São Paulo, so there's nothing to be revived because it's super alive. But when people speak about this revival of downtown or bringing new programs, it makes sense because all these buildings that I showed at the beginning were built in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Then suddenly there's like a void from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And then you build these two amazing buildings, which are hyper complex, and we can talk about them, about the complexity of building them. They are many year-long projects, and bring these unexpected new programs that give them like a contemporary sense to the downtown. So I would like if you could comment on this idea of not reviving, but adding new things, right? And what is this contemporary? And also maybe one can answer one of the questions, and the other one, it's more of a comment, but also comment on this, when you show it complete, I mean, you show an super complex, socially, politically, the client, the architect, the construction, the budget, the materiality, the layers, the program, and then you show pictures. And we have experienced architects watching us, but we have students watching us, and it's not a magical process, right? So what the challenges of a very long period of from planning from the first day to, you know, to today to its use. And we're gonna not talk about the pandemic, that we can talk later. So maybe, I don't know, Marta, a little bit of this reusing, restoring. You said at the beginning, demolition was a possibility, and what about, and there's a question, I'm going to add it to the question. There's a question of George Bolo that says, I didn't fully understand why the ceiling level is so low in many of the floors, and it has to do a lot with this reusing, right?
Yes, the ceiling was so low because the existing building has a very low ceiling, or all over the floors, because apart from the shop on the ground floor and the first floor, the rest of it was a very typical office, old office building. So that's why it's a very low ceiling. But what I would like to say also, because I completely agree what you are saying, I think the center downtown is very much alive, inclusive, because there are lots of immigrants around, what makes it more diverse and more interesting in terms of culture manifestation. But also comment that there are lots of buildings that are occupied by people for housing, from the movement that in the SESC, movement for habitation in the center of the city. What is very, very interesting, because it's a very legitimate, I don't know how to say that, legitimate movement to occupy these empty buildings. So I think it's a very desirable transformation, what makes the center much more interesting. So Paulo sometimes refers to SESC, 24 de Maio, as an occupation. And I think this idea is very nice to think about, because it's people that in the end makes the possibilities of this space. So I think it's a movement that is very interesting. The housing process in the center, people living there, what is absolutely fundamental to its life. So the two buildings, I think, is very interesting to happen in that context. But the fact is that the people are there. People go to the center of the city. It is a reference for the whole metropolis. In SESC, for instance, the conviviality space, there are people that stay there for a couple of hours just taking a nap. You see, it's just a dynamic that is very much alive. So I don't know if I answered you.
No, I think it's not about answering, it's just really about saying, you know, when it's about restoring or recycling what seems to be like an abandoned or a decadent downtown, it's nice for everyone in New York to understand that the downtown could be think decadent, just like Chico started his talk, is like, because the urban model is decadent. So it's not the downtown, it's everywhere. Because downtown is a concentrated and dense and a place to walk, you can tell more in terms of probably homelessness, or and also because of the model of the city that has expanded a lot, the downtown has been abandoned some of the buildings, but they have been occupied, like you just said, by immigrants. And when Marta says immigrants, is recent immigration. So it's immigration from the past years, the past 2, 5, 10 years. So it's not, Brazil is a country of immigrants like the US, but these are recent immigrants from Africa, from different places in the west coast of Africa, from Venezuela, where there are conflicts, from IT, so there are a lot of people that are being received, and probably it's less heard of that Latin America has immigration, because we hear a lot about Syrians or immigration from Africa to Europe, but in Brazil, there's a lot of immigration as well. And so the downtown has been kind of the sponge that receives all these people. And these people are the ones that are using these new buildings as well as a mix of them. So it's just this idea of not restoring or reviving the downtown is alive, but reviving in terms of program, right? In the case of SESC, it's very clear. In the case of Praça das Artes, the program is specified for the school. So the ones that use, the users, right, Chico, are school students from the arts. Not everyone can just go in and circulate through the building. But you left obviously the ground floor open for this occupation to be possible. And in this sense, there's one question here in the Q&A that is the obvious question: if there is any influence from MASPI in this idea of living and a completely open ground floor, or is it something that obviously comes from the Anhangabaú that you said, and how this ground floor allows for this population that exists to live the downtown different way?
Okay, well, it's evident. MASPI, it's an example of a very, very good example in a way to Avenida Paulista entire should be like that. It was very fantastic. It is what possible. What is important is to say these opportunities of the city design be in a way that was with porosity, as you say, with transparency, with a comfort for the people who use the city. It's what we want. It's what we should do. And I don't believe when I see a big project here or there for the immobiliary industry that don't use these possibilities. Make kind of like said, the city was a kind of a danger for the people. They like in the medieval cities, walls. The people, some kind of people, think that it's better to defend from the city, the hostile city, and it's. I'm sure so the MASP was evident one reference and other projects, not only MASP, but you saw today two projects that in different ways make the same things in this aspect, creating permeability in the city, invitation the people to entrance and to use and to the conviviality is Marta says, for me, is the principal thing in architecture that we should think. Even in a house of a family, the space of conviviality is the main space of the house, the most important. Nothing to eliminate the personal, individual place, the corner that one, if you want to be alone, should have this place to do nothing, only to be alone. It's very important, but most important, the city is the place of conviviality. The city is the place where we live together, and this big space with the shadow. You say the shadow, the sombra, the shadow to in the hot days in Brazil. It's very. One day I was in a meeting of work in the center of the city, and at the end of this meeting, I was walking, and near Praça das Artes, I was going to take the subway in Republic, Praça República, and I was walking. This is a real story that I live, and I said, well, I will passar pela Praça das Artes, go to through Praça das Artes. And the people walk with the high velocity. São Paulo is a city a little bit nervous, né? All the people walking down. When I crossed this I don't know how to say esse vão como do MASP, como se diz, que tem a escola de música em cima.
Span, não?
Como?
Span? Span.
Span.
Span. Yeah, and there was a guy playing a cello, some toccata of Bach, I don't know. And the people, when the district that make the same that I was doing, past stroke, Praça das Artes, when the people in the shadow, they walk more slowly. And so much people like me, that was with the time the new meeting in my office, on the other side of the town. It was in the, but I with a negotiation with myself, sitting in the bank, and I heard that music, and the time seems in suspension. How to say suspension? And this kind of suspended the time for a minute, but but was a very good experience, and it was everybody can do this, and lost 1 minute, 2 minutes, and things of time and space.
It's the imprevisibility what is the fun, isn't it? You don't expect, and then something very powerful happens of the situation. I think it's very nice. But you know, there is another thing in downtown. You have a fabric that is already there. That is what is interesting about, because you have an application that is already is very interesting. The buildings can be from the 30s or 60s, from 30s to 60s, an old building, but with a typology that already is fantastic. So it's ready to be occupied in some various manners. I think that is what makes downtown so special about it.
Yeah. We're talking about this place in the screen. We call the new center of São Paulo. The old center is where the place where the city was founded, but this is the new center. In this new center, that new center has a beautiful, very beautiful, interesting characteristic. That is the galleries. These galleries. The SESC 24 de Maio, it's a kind of gallery. And Praça das Artes too. It's a lesson that this city, the new center, gives to us. No? With permeability, with different uses, and mainly commercial galleries, but it's very, very important that you inside or under buildings, or no or not, you are in the city, in the territory of the city, in the free territory of citizens. No? This is very beautiful. Some galleries. No?
So, o microfone está desligado.
After you've seen the presentations, you can again see the map, because you know what Marta and Chico were talking about, these two places. But Chico, you said, you know, what's nice is about living together, and today inaugurated the Venice Biennale, which is called How Will We Live Together, right? And but at the same time, both Marta and you show like these collective moments that are amazing, full of people. And then you also show the window with the person on her own, and you show just a couple on their own. So it is also about these scales of collective and loneliness, but within a collective. And one thing that's incredible to me is the capacity of understanding the urban scale. So introducing both buildings historically, but historically the urban fabric of its complexities, and going all the way to, Marta showed the design of the chair, and in the case of Praça das Artes, the design with Marta Moreira, the ceiling with it. So it's also bringing a scale that Chico has in with Baraúna, dedicated to a smaller human scale, and in that sense, being involved in all of the project and all of the scales, that's wonderful. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about this multi-scalar approach to the project.
Yeah. Every those scales that you said, since the furniture, the house, the place where you work, the city that you live, all this is architecture. All this is about the human habitat. Yeah? We can, we should, we don't forget this. In every scale, things. It's why I said in my speech. But the urban plans, the great São Paulo is a champion. Each major make his plan to the metropolis. The other they forgot that the new plan, and this plan was functional plan that used the designed by cars. By cars, it's incredible. So the kind of urban mobility by cars. So if you saw the public space of the city, the people are in a small parts of the calçadas of and the cars and it's a kind of uma guerra perdida, how to say, war that you lost because you never will have in the city space for all the cars that they produce and the people buys and forever. So to defend the space for the conviviality, your human conviviality, for places to be in the city, not for walk only. You can sit and see the people and take a coffee or something, or heard something, playing some instrument or this is the life, the most important of life. Is this that I think that the comfort of the cities, our cities, are not comfortable.
Marta, can you tell us a little bit about this approach? Designers, we have design decisions that can go from the largest to the smallest, and what you showed is a masterpiece of scales.
Well, this is a comment that I think is interesting to make because SESC, it's a promoter, not even architecture, but also the design. So the way that they ask for the architect also to design the furniture, it's a kind of way of promoting the Brazilian possibility of design. Well, in fact, we had this opportunity, and it's nice, like you say, this change of scales, because it's not just the design of a chair, for instance, but can you imagine in a place where the average is 10,000 people per day? It's a lot of people. So, like Chico was saying, it's nice to think where people can be confident enough to be secure of doing things, small things. For instance, in conviviality, the other day, I saw two people doing the hair of each other. They were cutting the hair and doing this kind of thing. And because in center of São Paulo, there is a characteristic also. People come to the center, to downtown, for 2 or 3 days, for instance, because they come from far away of the metropolis, and they come for a day labor, you know. They come to find a work for a day or two as a waiter or as a cook or, I mean, several. So come and stay 2 or 3 days in the center. Sleeping in small hotels or even in the square or in SESC, what we saw this in the beginning, the conviviality I was commenting. There was lots of people taking naps, but taking naps. So one day somebody told me that one person went to SESC, the administration said, listen, could you please make less noisy because I'm trying to sleep? And the music is disturbing me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we should. I'm not saying that is to sleep in SESC. I'm saying that we should find manners of conviviality where people feel confident to negotiate. It's an eternal negotiation, right? Yeah. We are always, all the time, negotiating among us what you can do, what we can't do, or how we can make good for you and good for me. And so I think downtown is the place that is the place, the local of the city where this happens all the time, because it's a big variation of activities or types of people. So it's a good school for us to learn how to convive. I don't know.
Yes. There are tons of questions, comments. Myself, I would like to speak more about the program, the materialities, the transformation, the weather that allows for these places to exist. But I think our time is a little bit over. I think you've touched upon subjects that are specific to São Paulo, but that are also very universal to New York, to Mexico City, to probably some cities in Asia, different cities in Europe, maybe. But it is really like, with these 2 examples, there are so many things that can be touched and taught. One very, very last comment. Can you please tell us how long you spent from the first time? And Kata said we need to finish in the next 2 or 3 minutes, but I really want you to say how much it took you, because it feels like it's not an easy process, and just in terms of time and complexity, 1 minute each, and we can finish our session today.
Well, for SESC it was 15 years of project and approbation process in the municipality and construction. And a lot of people work on this project. From SESC, from our office, the engineers. It was a huge, people that work here for, everybody worked in SESC project, you know, for such a long process. So it was a very quality project, including so people from SESC.
It's a huge effort for 15 years. And Chico, I think you're still ongoing with the project. How long did it take since you started?
Praça das Artes, for example, we we lost a year for the, we was invited to the, for the municipality, the secretary of the cultural secretary at this time. And there is in the law of contracts, of I don't know contracts, but of the public power in Brazil, it's very complicated. But there's one thing that they, in special projects, in very that requirement of experience of it's possible to contract directly without competition, because these competitions in the several cases was kind of the price of the project. It's the
what year was it?
Sorry?
¿Qué año era? What year?
2006, mais ou menos.
15 years ago as well.
15 years ago.
Yes.
And this process, the long process, since the beginning of the invitations of the secretary and the inauguration of the 2013, and it's not finished.
Yes.
There are other parts that was not constructed.
There are things left.
It's a long time, and certainly with so much people working this project, so much people. But what have the important in this project, or in my opinion, and in the SESC 24 de Maio, is that is the way that they both responding, asking for the answer for the reason why, how, and for whom we do cities.
Yes.
This is the way that.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I wish we could continue the conversation. But thank you so much for sharing these two incredible, very complex projects that I think really represent kind of new possibilities to, you know, intervene in the city and create public spaces and spaces that are really inviting to everyone and that really kind of transform the experience of the city. So thank you so much. I just really wanted to say that our next current work lecture will be on June 17 with Toyo Ito at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We have also very different programs coming up, so please visit our website. You can also sign up for our weekly newsletter. And we would like to thank our members who really help us continue to produce our programming. So Marta, Chico, and Saul, muito obrigada. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saul. Thank you, Catarina. Thank you, Chico.
Cara, Marta, Chico. It's so nice to talk about this.
And thank you for everybody that is here.
The 100 people that subscribed. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you for you. Okay.